Hello, and welcome back to the Talent Pieces podcast. I'm your host, Carlos Delcid. And here, we talk all about talent and culture for entrepreneurs, startup founders, and business leaders looking to scale their companies effectively. If you find today's session helpful, don't forget to share it with fellow entrepreneurs and follow the Talent Pieces podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. So thank you one more time to joining the Talent Pieces podcast. Today, I have the great honor and pleasure to have Pramod Sajja joining us. So Pramod, great pleasure, having you. I'm honored with, your journey and everything that we have spoken offline already. But, for our audience, we'll definitely love to know a little bit more about yourself, how your career started, and how, you got to a point that this year you were appointed one of the finalists of Entrepreneur of the Year by Ernst.
Yes. Thank you so much. And on that note, thanks to you, Carlos. You're the first guy who walked up to me at Atlanta CEO Council to congratulate me on my award.
Thank you.
Which was a very big deal because I think this is the second year that I applied for it.
Yeah.
Somebody nominated me for it. And the learnings are really, really good. We went through the whole process and got to meet with people with similar backgrounds. We got those meet and greet ups, interviews. All the process was really, really enriching. So I would, obviously thank EY for doing this for more than 30 years, all across the world.
Wow.
They just don't do it in the US, but they do it all across the world.
That's a huge deal. And if you think about entrepreneurship across the globe, you've seen people innovating, creating great products. And the fact to be one of the finalists, again, kudos to you because I feel it's a big deal.
Yeah.
But tell me how everything started. We're
Sure,
going back 27 years.
26 years. So, obviously, from my name, you probably have assumed that I'm an Indian American. So I came to this country, especially Atlanta, 26 years back. So my journey started me coming here on an H-1B, which is a temporary working visa. But strangely, I probably, you'll find me to be the only Indian to have come on a temporary work visa but never worked for any employer. So because I came to this country with a mission, with a passion, with a vision to be an entrepreneur. That has always been my goal since I was a teenager. My mother manifested me to go places and me to be an entrepreneur even when I was in my teens. So that kind of, thanks to my mom's manifestation and her blessing. So, I came in and my brother and sister-in-law were already here in Atlanta. So I still remember the day I came in the month of March, 1998. My sister-in-law came in to pick me from the airport. Coming down Atlanta downtown, it was such I can't express that. It's almost feels like it's yesterday. It happened yesterday.
Wow.
And that day, even to this day, I have the same passion. I have the same commitment to be an entrepreneur. I continue to do that. So that's how my journey with coming to US and to become an entrepreneur has started off. So came in, started the company with the help of my brother and my sister-in-law. And we went through our ups and downs. We had our trials and tribulations. But the one thing I would say, because for every immigrant, one of the biggest achievements would be realizing the American dream.
Yes.
I've done it. And as a company, as a Paramount Software Solutions, what I'm so proud of, being an immigrant in this country is not just to realize my dream, my American dream, but the fact that we've helped hundreds and thousands of immigrants do the same thing over the last 26 years. So that if somebody would ask me what has been your biggest achievement over the last 26 years coming to this great country, I would say that probably would be the one.
It's creating job opportunities for more people to have the same opportunities.
Ecosystem.
I'll talk about an H-2B program. It's kind of similar to the H-1B, just different, sector. We'll get to talk about that in a minute. But before that, I want to go back to how were those early days? Because if I'm thinking about 26 years of trajectory of Paramount Software Solutions, we're talking that you made it through the .com, you made it through the financial crisis of 2008 and COVID. So there's definitely a kind of a different breed of entrepreneur to kind of make it up through a crisis, give alone 3. So tell me your insights there.
That's a very good question. So for me, the good news is that, when I came in 98, Y2K was the thing happening.
Yeah.
So for me, starting the company to cater to the Y2K was a no-brainer. So I started right off made money for the first 2 years. I think first year we hit about 4 million revenue.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, came 2000 and no lights went off, nothing went into dark.
Right.
And that's when we realized like, wow, this is because, when that day we woke up to find that, there's no Y2K problem to solve. And then we have to pivot. We have to, find our footing as to, okay, what next? Fortunately, the dot-com was booming. So all the money that we made, put it into some startups and all that. That went belly up in 2002. So from 98 to 2002, in the first 4 years, those learnings were very, very valuable for me. Because, the background, the teachings, and,
Right.
what the learnings that you had back in India and what you experienced, now it's time that you put that strategy into place. So what we have done from that point forward is that these kind of ups and downs are going to be happening. In a business, this is a common.
Right.
So that you have to realize it. So as a tech company, what we've done is at that point in time, strategically, we kind of made a decision that every 4 years, we'll reinvent ourselves to find the next big thing.
Right.
And create a center of excellence around that.
Okay.
And more importantly, obviously, there are layers. It's like, building blocks. So it's not just one thing you think about it and kind of do it. But the fact that we thought that, we create a center of excellence, we find the next big thing, and then use that to solve somebody's problem, and becoming a very generalist and not a specialist. So when you look at Paramount Software, we, even as of today, we are more of a generalist. So we handle projects, completed projects worth all the way from $10,000 to $7 million projects. And technologies
Wow.
range all the way from PHP to using blockchain and AI. So in that spectrum, what happened is when the banking bust happened, it did impact everyone. That's one of the worst things that could happen to the US economy and businesses. But we survived. The fact that, we had a strategy in place, we had to do a lot of maneuvering and all that to retain our clients, our revenue and assets. Our revenue went down, obviously, but we survived that. And then when pandemic came in, obviously those learnings kind of, we had a strategy in place, and we've kind of worked out a system which is going to work. So no matter what kind of economic downturn comes in, we kind of created those pillars of resilience,
Right.
which is going to, COVID was a different animal altogether.
By all means, yeah.
Right? But the good news is that having a great culture, which I'm guessing we're going to talk in a minute, we were able to pivot to go remote, virtual,
Right.
all across the globe. And then with that, we created more opportunities. In fact, believe it or not, the first 9 months of COVID was bad for us, but the next 18 months, our revenues went up by 25%.
Skyrocket, yeah.
It went up. So the reason being that, we were able to pivot, we were able to find through our remote and virtual teams, we were able to, achieve that.
One of the or the two different takeaways from what you were saying right now is the first one, and this is very important for entrepreneurs and startup founders, have a contingency plan. And by a contingency plan, I mean really think about what's your worst case scenario. Don't because again, and I went through this myself when I thought about, okay, I'm going to start a business. What's my business model? What's my financial projection? And I thought everything was colorful and the rainbow of, yes, we're going to have this hockey stick and we're going to go to, I don't know, 50 million in our third year. First, it's unrealistic, right? Until you get to know the market, you understand what's really what you can count in, or what's a realistic assumption based on the market that you're serving. But on the other part is, okay, what if something like COVID gets to happen again? Are we ready? Then now with AI, yes, we have great benefit, but we also have great risk and liability on terms of cybersecurity needs. So how are we ready for that, and how we get ourselves prepared for that? I think it's very important. And I think it's one of the things that your team was able to do great is kind of get ready for those worst case scenarios and make sure that we can lay those foundations to kind of skyrocket again after it's past those low seasons. My second takeaway, and it's also very important, and again, it doesn't matter if you have a service company, if you're building a product or whatever you're trying to solve, you're solving it for a customer. So the relations that you get to have with your clients, especially through the tough days, when the economy is great, when we're building the right product, when everyone is happy, our client is growing, you don't have to pretty much, it's kind of an autopilot relation, and quote unquote, not necessarily because you always kind of try to keep that relation close.
Yeah.
But when things go south, when the economy is not right, whenever we have, say, COVID situation again or cybersecurity liabilities, that's when you really come together and have the real honest talk. That's where you build closer relations with your clients. So if you can elaborate a little bit more on that, on because you were saying you can serve a project anything from $100,000 to $7 million,
$10,000 to $7 million.
It's even less. So how do you get closer to those clients regardless of their size? Because we are talking about early startups to Fortune 500 companies.
Absolutely. That's a great question. So let me put it this way. Have you ever heard about Amazon day one mindset?
Yes.
Okay. So we more or less follow the same thing because I'm a very big fan of what Amazon does, especially AWS, because we work very closely with AWS. And we went through their day one mindset wherein it's kind of, they created a culture and the operating model wherein they put customer at the middle of everything.
Yes.
That's number one. And the way they operate is to have a long-term vision for the client because, as I said, you're doing everything with the client in mind.
Right.
So the model basically goes on to improvise and implement the long-term vision for the client and then obsess over your customers. That's very important because everybody says that, yeah, we are obsessed, we are here for the customers, we do it every day and day out, kind of thing. But you realistically have to consciously make an effort all through, that's why it's called a culture, wherein not just Jeff Bezos is doing or I'm doing it. We have to make sure that everyone has that mindset.
Yes.
So you obsess over your customers and then you do bold innovation. So when you bring all this as part of a culture, I'll give an example. So to the question, now we have an operating model in place. Now you have to implement it, right? So now I'm going to give an example of how it has been implemented. So there is a customer here in Atlanta, a government client, where we've serviced them. We build multiple projects for them. So we had a service contract for the last 3 years. So end of the year, obviously, they wanted to have a gear up on the new year, 25, 26 planning. So they said, okay, let's get on a call, talk our service contract. We only had a service contract. Service contract is very simple, right? Wherein you have a bucket of hours, you use it, we cater to, whatever you want, new development, maintenance, whatever you need, you use your bucket of hours and they be done. So the conversation was simply about that. So the client manager was on, and especially, I'm not on most of those calls, but this is a very important client for us. And this is where, the whole obsess over your customers comes into the picture. So I was on the call, and then, I could see that, okay, we went through it, and I was trying to read between the lines. I could see the shift of the manager, the client manager, talking about not very happy, not about us, but about their ecosystem. They're not a tech company, right? They don't have the budget to hire. They hired someone, the guy came in and he left. They have multiple technologies that they're using. They couldn't find one guy with all the technologies. So this is what he was kind of, putting it out that, making it very, very difficult for them to plan the 25 and 26. Because service agreement is not going to solve all those problems.
Right.
So I listened to the whole conversation. I said, okay, can I do this? You seem to be in a dilemma because this is kind of an option choice. You want to do things, you have to get the budget approval. You're not a tech company to be doing it. So can I offer this? A 2-week in-depth analysis by an architect. We're going to come in. We're going to have an architect look at your current ecosystem from an application perspective, from an infra perspective, from your UI perspective, and your testing perspective. And then we're going to make recommendations based on that. And this is going to be pro bono, for free, right?
Right.
His eyes lit up. That obviously will solve, because we're giving a solution which is going to solve the bigger problem and which is coming for free. So with that roadmap, they could, it would be a lot easier for them to make those decisions. And then eventually, will come back to us, to implement it. So this is what is one example of, what you, when you talk about obsessing over your customer, this is what it means, reading between the lines. And so that's how we do it.
Hey there, quick break. If you are enjoying today's conversation, don't forget to hit subscribe and give us those 5 stars. It will help us grow a lot. Now, back to our conversation. I love something that you said, and it's that it's a pro bono. Because sometimes, and again, whenever we're thinking about this early stage of how I'm going to make money, we obsess about making money. But reality is long-term success comes with those concessions
Yes.
that we make for our client to make sure that
yeah.
they are successful, and in return we are going to be successful in having this relation and continuing to grow the business. Now, that is one part, which is the client side, and being very obsessed about their success and making sure that we deliver quality. That's kind of my mindset while doing things with Puzzle. I'm pretty sure it's the same while you're
Absolutely.
doing
Under
Paramount
promise,
Software.
over deliver.
Yes. And now, but there's the other side of the story. It's the talent, the people that is actually delivering. Because we're not coding, you're not coding for your clients, and I'm not doing that. But we have people that is doing that job in, day out.
Yes.
So taking care of them and making sure that they also have the right benefits, the right support, the right care, it's also very relevant. So how have you handled that, especially through the 26 years of career with
That's
your
a great
business?
question. So when we start, right, as a young, fresh entrepreneur, it's always about making money, the hockey stick, what you said.
Yeah.
You're obsessed over the hockey stick. Everybody's obsessed over the hockey stick. Everybody's obsessed over the business plan. We want everything on the business plan to come to fruition, which is good, it's always, but reality is different. So just to put this into perspective, people ask this question the wrong way that, since COVID, everything went virtual and then came back to hybrid.
Right.
So the question most people ask is, how is it working for you? What is a better model? Is on-site better model, hybrid a better model, or how are you even managing the virtual? Because since COVID, when we went virtual, we completely went virtual, global virtual.
Yeah.
So right now, we got rid of all the offices. I mean, we still have offices, but it's 100% global virtual. So to answer the question, I tell them that, the question itself is wrong, because you can't be asking that question unless you build a culture around it.
Yes.
An operating model. I just mentioned about the operating model around a customer. And so now there has to be a similar operating model around your employees also. So for us, every Paramountian is very important. So to build that culture, and I'm going to give you a lot of examples to that. So what we have done is, and this probably started about 15 years back. So we kind of divided into a pronged approach. Okay, let's start with, what is that an employee would want. So first starts with the salary and flexibility,
Right.
medical insurance and all that. So everybody does it, right? So
Base level
the
needs.
base level benefits, and you're giving everything. And then comes a time where you have to make sure that they align with your vision. So vision is not just for your the CEO of the company, the founder, the co-founder, or the C-suite, but it has to kind of trickle down.
Right.
So we said, okay, what can be done? So let me give an example. So as of 2024, we've been awarded Fortune number one company for women and parents. And we have 50% women. That's one thing that,
Big
very
deal.
big achievement, big deal. Yeah. So how did we achieve that? So we started, our HRs, along with me, we started to get it into the root of the problem. So when women from global perspectives come on, what is the biggest challenge that they face? It's toxic environments, right? So how do you make the environment conducive for them? There are a lot of strategies that you implement. But the one thing that I personally felt was when you bring in them, most of them, all women into an environment, how to kill the toxicity,
Right.
Because I can't just go and say, oh, you can't do this, you can't do this, and it's fine, but there still is going to, because I'm not going to be in every meeting. So the one thing I did is that as a policy, we said that there is no shouting, there is no condescending behavior, there is no looking down upon someone. Okay, and we made this a policy. It's not just I came into a meeting and said it. We made this into a policy. And what I mean, believe it or not, we actually I personally fired some sales guys because they had 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes, you're out. We fired. So we did that. That's the first thing that we did.
Right.
That, okay, there's no shouting, no looking down, and no condescending. Condescending could be as simple as that, oh, you don't even know how to do this. Oh, I
True.
thought, there is a way of telling it, right? So we kind of started with that. And the second thing we did is, and one of the other biggest problems that I've seen with most of the companies, when you are a top-down hierarchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you have a top-down hierarchy, you kind of think, oh, I'm your boss, so I have every right, I'm going to do whatever I need. And this is where the toxicity and everything starts to breed. So we said,
Absolutely.
okay, let's break that down. So we went to something called holacracy. So Tony Hsieh is the first guy from Zappos who implemented this. So, in layman's terms, it's flat management.
Right.
So we've had flat management for so many years, but holacracy is an improvised version of flat management. So in that, what happens is there's no top down, there's no manager managee, but it's more mentor mentee.
Right.
And then the third thing what we've done is we said, okay, now we got the processes in place, we got a model which is in place, and now how do we implement it? So then came EOS. So we were looking for some process to be implemented, and then we came across entrepreneurial operating system, and then we first started with the
EOS.
EOS.
Yes.
So we did this about 8 years back, even before COVID. So we had a company from New York came in and then first started with the whole, because EOS is mostly for leadership team.
Yes.
And then COVID hit. I said, no. I want this to be trickled down to every member of my team.
Yes.
Onshore, offshore, nearshore, everywhere. Everyone has to go through this program.
Same mentality.
Same mentality.
I think that's very valuable. And as I reflect of things that I've tried to do on my puzzle journey, it's first of tried everyone that has a leadership role within puzzle needs to have this servant leadership mentality. We are here to support our team. Yeah. We're not in a I'm your boss position. We're here to how do I make you more successful? In return, we're going to have a more successful business. Yes. I think that's super important. And the other part is and it's funny because how do you start a non-toxic environment? It's kind of starting with a detox process. I've had to have very honest conversations and very open conversations with my new hires about, look, in here, I am not sarcastic. If I am mad, I will tell you that I am mad. Don't get into assumptions. I am almost never mad because sometimes we get frustrated and that's very natural. But I sometimes try to explain some very obvious things, but it's because I'm trying to also be very I want to understand
empower them. When you're doing it in an empowering voice as a mentor,
yes,
they take it. Even if it's a bad advice, they would consider it and they'll take it because they know that what you're saying and mentioning is for their benefit.
Absolutely. So what I want to empower them, and at the same time, I don't want to go under the assumption that they have the same background that I have, and because they have the same background, we see it from the same angle. So a lot of them have come to me like, look, I'm not used to speaking out loud of why I think about the company because it can get you fired in a different company or it can get me in trouble with whoever. It's like, no, if you don't give me an honest feedback, then we cannot change what's wrong or what can be better. Yeah. For instance, I always have a fun story, but I try to at least once a year, and I'm hoping this can be a scalable system, try to meet for at least 15 minutes with every employee in the company.
Yeah.
So during one of those early conversations, I was talking with one of our engineers, and by then we used to be called puzzle recruitment. He's like, I'm an engineer. Puzzle recruitment does not resonate to what I do. I am not a recruiter, so I cannot really feel identified with the brand. But it will be cool if it's just called puzzle. I'm like, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And it came from one of our engineers, probably a month, 2 months into the company. And in fact, it was such a valuable feedback that I ended up changing the company to just being puzzle.
Yeah,
so that speaks for, the more you give these spaces to people to A, feel comfortable, and B, provide feedback, the more you can actually learn about your own business and make it scale.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right in terms of mentioning that those ideas actually come from it. So if you look at all the products, all the solutions that we built, as much as I want to take credit for all of it, none of it came from me, believe it or not. None of the, I started off with these policies and everything in place, making sure that, these are followed to the dot. That's the only thing that I do.
Right.
Every other innovation actually comes from the team.
You only make sure that it actually happens.
Yeah. I just give them the tools, provide them with the design thinking technologies. And one of the other things that, I kind of learned, we are a tech company, right? So which means we have a lot of introverts, a lot of shy people, especially when they're all immigrants. And they want to be out there. They want to be out there, especially in the social media culture that we have. They want to be out there. So I do provide a lot of speaking engagements to our team members. But the thing is, they don't want to step out. They'll say, oh, Pramod, that's your job. You do it. No, I said, no. I can't go to a Hyperledger summit and talk about blockchain. I can go to Carlos' podcast and talk about the culture, but I can't talk about
Yeah.
blockchain. In a Hyperledger forum, that's your job. You have to do it. So what we have done is, so I took a step back. I said, what do these guys need? They have the technical capabilities. They are PhDs. Some of them are PhDs. They have everything. It's just that the fear of public speaking is what is
Yeah.
making them stand behind. So we've had coachings, trainings for these people, prepare them for those speaking engagements, and then make them go and present. Their lives changed drastically. Even to this
Yes.
day, ex-employees, I have them coming back and meet with me whenever there's an opportunity, saying they promote that opportunity that you gave me, putting me through training and coaching and putting me out there changed my life, both personally and professionally.
I love that because that's where we can talk about how we make impact on people's life. It's not about while you're at Puzzle, you're gonna get all these benefits that will only be applicable for your time here.
Yeah.
But it's really like long-term success. It's things that you will learn and apply in the long run of your career.
Yeah.
So I think that's very meaningful. And the other thing that we were talking about earlier, it's the H-1B program that I think now you're using. And when I was mentioning the H-2B, but I'll definitely love to know what's your angle there.
Yeah, so H-1B is a temporary work visa program, which is provided by obviously the U.S. government, wherein people with specialty occupation from all across the world can come in and fill in some of the positions. So Paramount Software, even to this day, have sponsored, and I came in obviously as on an H-1B. So I know the challenges that an immigrant on an H-1B goes through because for anyone who comes here as an immigrant, the biggest thing is realizing the American dream. And what it entails having a steady job, a stable job, and someone who can sponsor a green card, and then eventually for them to buy a house in this great country.
Yes.
So that's, in a nutshell, is the American dream. I've realized it. I went through my process of doing it. So if you ask me as to what has been the biggest achievement for me as an entrepreneur running a Paramount Software for the last 26 years is the fact that it's not just me, the fact that, me and the whole team, we were able to help hundreds and thousands of these immigrants to realize this American dream. So we got the green cards. We made sure that the H-1B never went out of status, managed their, any kind of immigration challenges that they get, just so that, they could go, because especially for Indians and Chinese and maybe a little bit of Mexico, the wait is so long. It typically takes, like for someone coming from India, now it takes about 8 to 12 years to get your green card.
Wow.
So that's a long time, to be waiting and waiting
That's
and waiting.
wild. Yeah.
It's wild. And then that's where we come into the picture to make their lives easy, to give them that confidence. And the fact that we've done it over the last 26 years, I probably would say is one of the biggest achievements for me personally and as a company also.
It's impacting people's lives. I when I first was starting Puzzle and I started working with my immigration attorney, in my personal case, he came back to me and said, like, you're doing tech. This is probably not a thing for you. But I have this client that is looking for H-2B positions, which is not that specialized. It's more like blue collar level positions. Like,
Okay.
Think about housekeeping, cashiers, landscaping. So I'm like, it is definitely not what I do. It is absolutely not what I want to focus on. But I'll do it. I'll do it because it is the opportunity for people from Honduras and now across Latin America can come to the United States and have an opportunity to start their American dream legally. I think that's great.
It is absolutely is big. It's very great.
So that started with 44 visas in 1 year. I think this year they were close to 450.
Oh, awesome. Congrats on that. That's a
Thank
big
you.
number.
It's a big number. It's growing. It's definitely not Puzzle. It's a different entity. It's a different business that it's now managed by different people. But the fact that I was able to support to get this program started, and now I have people that it's reaching back saying thank you. It helped. It helped a lot on now I'm living in Montana, whatever you call it, or any other state. But their life drastically changed. And I think that is also very meaningful.
Yeah, that's very rewarding. When you have your employees come back and then thank you for the culture, for the benefits that we provide in terms of green cards and and citizenship, to help them realize the American dream is very big. I mean, it's very rewarding.
It
And I'm
is.
pretty sure, you doing that, you experience that day in, day out.
Yes, absolutely. Look, I moved in February 2023, so less than 2 years ago to the country. I've gone through all the phases of, oh my God, what am I doing here? To okay, I kind of like it. To
Yeah.
I love it here. I'm very proud to call Atlanta home,
Oh,
and the fact that it feels like home, it's even better. Like it takes a minute. It has been definitely a transition for me and my wife, but I'm thankful with the opportunity, and now I'm very committed to a making sure that more people can have this opportunity, and b it's now that I have access to a different community, different rooms, different conversations, is how do I give back? And part of that is I'm very invested on this conference that I announced the other day on LinkedIn. I want to start one of the biggest conference in Latin America,
yeah.
hosted in San Pedro Sula, Honduras, because I want to help develop the tech ecosystem. We'll definitely have more space to talk about that, but I also wanted to talk about what you are doing in that give back setup, which is
Farm to plate.
farm to plate. Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a very innovative product, and we kind of envisioned that about 4 years back, soon after COVID hit, because by the time we were already blockchain experts. Because as I
Right.
said, if you remember my first conversation, that our strategy involves reinventing ourselves by investing, creating center of excellence around the emerging technologies.
Yes.
Right. So about 8 years back, we've done that with blockchain, and in those days it's all about Bitcoin, cryptos, and all that. So we've done bunch of pilots, bunch of projects on blockchain, and we've kind of built our expertise on blockchain. And then came a time wherein we thought like, okay, where else can this technology can be utilized? So during our research, talking to a lot of our clients and someone who approached us, as to blockchain, where it could be applied. So supply chain is one thing that we felt was very, very fascinating, where we felt the need of a blockchain could have a bigger impact. And within supply chain, we realized, that food and beverage industry. So that's where we started, put our feet on the ground and say that, okay, let's start to innovate more in terms of, how it could be done. And then after 3.5 years, now we can safely and proudly say that, we are the only solution, all-in-one solution, one-stop shop solution. In fact, I was talking to one of the biggest, again, as I said, I can't take names out, but one of the giants based out of Vietnam. I mean, they are a French company, but based out of Vietnam. They use all kinds of technologies, but they're not happy because it's all fragmented. Whether it's on the purchasing side, demand forecasting, they don't have demand planning, and she has to, because she operates a warehouse, and she has to buy coffee beans of 10,000 plus tons, which is not needed. And because they're not able to forecast it properly, and because as I said, it's a multinational enterprise level company, but it all comes from the top down, and they were not able to apply properly, because now her worry is that, why do I have to store 10,000 tons of coffee? I don't have to, because I don't have those kinds of deliveries, and now it's my responsibility to safeguard this warehouse.
Wow.
Okay. So anyhow, long story short, we felt that small medium businesses are the ones, even to this day, are very, very manual. And when I mean even companies which are 100, 200 years old company, the only technology they use is either Excel or QuickBooks. That's it.
Yes.
For them, that's technology.
And that works. Or
It
has
works for
worked
them.
so far.
It has worked for so far. So we thought, not that we want to disrupt what you're thinking, but there's a lot that the more can be done by creating solutions which are going to be accessible, which are going to be utilized as a one-stop shop for the small, medium businesses. So that way, one, they can compete more efficiently. Two, they can eliminate a lot of wastage. Eliminating wastage means that you are making more money.
Right.
Once you avoid wastage, that translates into money, right? And then third, regulations. FDA regulation, Europe regulation. A lot of regulations are coming into picture where it's forcing these companies to follow a tracking and tracing system. Okay, so which means like whether they like it, they don't like it, they will be forced to do that. They have to, right? So it's a combination of all this. Still, even with the regulation, companies are struggling. because they can go and buy SAP solution, they can go and buy an Oracle solution, because one, it's very costly, very heavy, it's very complex. You never ever
Right.
see a small medium business implementing an SAP solution.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where we come into the picture as a startup. That okay, we kind of break that silos of you don't have to go to an SAP or an IBM food trust. You could get this done from a small medium business, which is going to be a SaaS model where you pay for the features that you've used.
You're
Number
right
one.
sizing the solution for them.
You're right sizing the solution, and more important, it's a one-stop shop. And what I mean by one-stop shop is that you get your tracking tracing solutions, you get your demand forecasting in the same platform, you get your planning in the same platform, you get your risk analytics in the same platform, you get your control panel in the same control tower in the same platform. So
Wow.
that's what I'm talking about when we say a one-stop shop. I'm not talking about features, but I'm talking about applications.
A robust solution.
A robust solutions which is going to solve your everyday problem. And the biggest takeaway for that is, as I said, it has a tipping, which is going to help the farmer. And more importantly, every member of the ecosystem has a voice on the platform. When you have a voice, when you're transparent, and it becomes very easy for you to go global. So now when you look at third world countries, the biggest challenge when you ask them, they've got a great product. Like we've been talking to a lot of honey companies in India. But the problem is, they can't comply with the regulations of US or any developed nation. That's the reason they're not able to export it to those countries.
And this blockchain system will help them track and understand that they are complying with all the regulations.
It's simple. Just using technology, be compliant, and then boom, they have an opportunity to
Got
go
the
global.
solution. I love in the tech space, and you probably have seen a lot more than I have seen, but I've seen a lot of wild solutions out there. But I love when people it's building two different aspects of technology. One is everyday solutions, like something that will make your day to day easier. And then the second side, which is where I feel what you're trying to do now, it's very meaningful. It's have a global impact on people's economy. It's like decentralizing a lot of what revenue concentrations or wealth concentrations have been, but really share some of that to people that is producing that Starbucks coffee cup that you really
Yes.
like, but that they don't get a fraction of what the cost of that cup is.
You'll be shocked to see, understand that that dollar that you're spending or $3 that you're spending on the coffee, and because if it's coming from Honduras or it's coming from Indonesia, less than 1 cent of that actually goes to the farmer.
0.00 something.
Yeah, yeah.
No, absolutely great. And again, thank you for what you're building, because I feel you're building or solving a real problem in especially in third world countries' economies. So I think that's great. And thank you very much, for making the time for this podcast. I have really enjoyed this conversation, and I feel that you have shared a lot of valuable insights that will be very helpful for people trying to scale their companies.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation with you, and I hope your listeners would get benefited from having to listen an immigrant story
Awesome.
of entrepreneurship.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. And that's it for today's session. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit subscribe and follow the Talent Pieces podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. You will help us grow by sharing this podcast with fellow founders and entrepreneurs. If you have any questions or topics that you would like us to cover, feel free to leave them in the comments.